And we're live. Welcome to the 667 Experience, episode number 10, where we talk about six packs, six figures, and Sabbath. We like to get into it. And today, my co-host Jordan Rouse and I are going to be talking about when you're in the chaos, how to avoid burnout. And I think right now it is super relevant, especially in these times of crisis, pandemic, and everything else. You know, the world seems to be hitting people left, right, and center. And I think it's really important to know how to avoid burning yourself out. I know that I burnt myself out a lot of times, you know, in my life, and I'm sure Jordan's experienced that as well, and so many of our friends and so many of our family have. And so today we're going to talk about avoiding the burnout in the midst of chaos. Jordan, we're just sharing this right now in a bunch of different groups. But if you guys want to get some people to watch this, please share this video right now. Help us get this podcast out. Help us get this video. Share these awesome messages with people. Please subscribe. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can go to the 667 Experience on YouTube, and you can subscribe, and you can catch all of our newest and latest, greatest videos and content. With that being said, Jordan, are you finished sharing? You ready to rock and roll here?
I'm almost there, man. Almost there. We're gonna avoid some burnout by making sure this is shared the right place. So that's right. The more we do these, more people listen.
That's right. Hey, if you guys want to share this, please share and help us get this message out there. We'd love the support. I'm going to do a couple shares actually right now. So
this is our 10th episode, Shane. Can you believe that we're on our 10th episode?
10th episode, 10 episods, man.
We're not burnt out at all yet, man.
Seems like just yesterday we got this thing started. And we keep working on it. We're having a lot of fun, but definitely, guys, if you like what we're going to be throwing down tonight, feel free to share this video, like it, and we like to comment. We like to talk with you guys, so please comment in the chat box. If we see some good comments, we'll pin it up across the screen here. And okay, Jordan, I'm done all of my sharing. Let's get into this. So, what do you mean by avoid burnout in the midst of chaos?
Well, like, the world's got pretty crazy lately, Shane. I don't know if you've noticed, but it's kind of nuts, right?
Yeah.
So, everyone's going through the cycles, and a lot of people are doing more work for less money. I know I'm one of them. Having to recover from losing almost $1 million in contracts in a few weeks when COVID first hit. Now there's a new wave on the horizon of things happening. And it's kind of like one of those times where it can feel like a lot of pressure's coming down. And for example, I was hearing one of my wife's friends talk today, and she's like, man, I'm just she's young and healthy, and she's like, I'm afraid just to go to the grocery store. She's like, I go there, and she's like, I put on a mask, and I feel like I'm just sucking in my own air. And she's like, I'm getting lightheaded, and I'm trying to shop with 2 kids, and she's like, I'm stressed out. And there's a lot there, even for a stay-at-home mom or for someone working, you're going from pressure to pressure to pressure. There's no release valve. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In the past, we could chill out with our friends at a barbecue, and now we're told we're out to stay 6 feet or 6 meters apart or whatever it is, 2 meters apart, 6 feet, and it's crazy. So there's less ability to have a release valve. Those Fast and Furious cars, they have blow off valves in the past.
Yeah.
You can let the steam out. We don't have that as much right now. We don't have that connection. We can't just go to the pub with our buddies or the game with our friends where you can cheer, hoot, and holler beside 10,000 other people. There's just not those avenues now. So what I really liked, and I think you're going to talk a little bit about this, is you went up on a kind of a vacation or some glamping. Is that glorious camping?
Yeah, glamping. Yeah, I did, and I needed it. It was first of all, it was Father's Day. Okay, so what I've been doing to kind of avoid the burnout, because look, even my, I got hit. Not by COVID, but it affected my business. It affected everything. It just kind of came for me at an awkward time. You know what I mean? I was about to do a bunch of concerts. I had to put all of that on the side. It slowed my business down for a couple months. Things weren't moving. Everybody was in shell shock. You got hit with having to wear masks and you didn't know what was going on outside, and you didn't know how fast or how deadly this thing was going to be. And obviously now we realize it's way less deadly than they said it was going to be. There's probably 100 times more people who've had it who didn't even realize it than we even know. And the reality is that, you know, the economy and everything just took a giant kick to the balls. You know what I mean? And it hurt, and it's still hurting, and it's going to still hurt for a little while longer. And hopefully we can all really bounce back out of this. But yeah, there's a lot of stress, and for people who had to take money on the money, handouts from the government, or they didn't have enough money for the rent or the mortgages, or people who had financial situations, things that they were financing or leasing, or they had to let that go, or they had to give up a lot of stuff, or they had to sell a lot of stuff. I mean, it's a lot of overwhelm. Plus you got your kids at home, plus you got this, plus you got and everything is completely changed. So I totally understand what it can be like to get burnt out, to get that point where you like the mind starts to just break. You know, addictions and overdoses have been going through the freaking roof. Suicides have been going through the roof. So like we actually should be talking a lot more about mental health. And I think that's a huge thing. And what I started to realize was I was breaking down a little bit. You know, like I wasn't really like here in Vancouver, it normally is very nice from May till pretty much the end of September. Like we'll have a few days of rain normally. And I've lived in Vancouver for 10 years. But every day in May it poured, and it was cold and humid. You didn't want to even go outside. And almost every single day in June, like we're finally starting to get a little bit of nice weather, but it's not even that great. It's not really sunny. It's kind of cloudy, but it's not raining. And so that gets on you. Okay, this stuff affects your mind. You're locked inside. You don't want to go outside. You don't want to go out. You can't release. You can't blow off steam. You're watching the news. Things are hitting you a million miles an hour. Everything's getting shut down. Businesses are going down. People are getting unemployed. You know, kids are ravaging the houses. You know, relationships are breaking down. Addictions are skyrocketing. Suicide's off the charts. We got freaking problems here. And when you turn on the news, all you get is blasted with crazy news. And then you have riots and all this other kind of stuff. And everybody wants you to take a stand for something. And it's like, holy crap, I'm just literally trying not to puke my guts out right now because the world is so freaking insane. All right?
Yeah,
so sometimes you need to get out of the effing cities and just go camp. And so, like, it was nice. I took action. You know, I've been doing a fair amount of social, you know, distancing from people. Like, I've got my friends, and we do our best to keep tight with social distancing, and that way we can come together, we can hang out, we can hug, high five, and all that kind of stuff. But then, you know, it was Father's Day, so I wanted to go see my dad. Now, he lives out in the woods. My mom is a care aide. My grandma's 90. She just turned 90. So it was my sister has, you know, she's got cancer. She's got some massive health issues and stuff like that. So she's way more on the danger zone, I guess you could say. You know, if something. So I decided to just go out and see the family. I took a 8-person inflatable tent I found on at Canadian Tire. It was like half price. I got this crazy huge tent. It's like a warehouse. You know, I stuffed that in my car. I bought an inflatable kayak from Amazon. It was like $130. I would highly recommend that. I should actually make my list. I had my backpack, my sleeping bag. I brought a propane tank, a fire pit, and basically you know, a bunch of clothes and my electric bike. And I just packed it all in with my dog, and we went out to the Okanagan. I camped for the last 8 days, and it was absolutely amazing. You know, I'm so used to working that when I actually wasn't, it was weird. It was weird. I was like, I could do a lot of stuff. I should be marketing. I should be making videos. But I think I should actually just not be doing any of that stuff because I needed to decompress. And so for me, it was getting out into the woods, setting up a tent, seeing a campfire. You know, if you don't have campfires, you do the little propane tanks or whatever. But yeah, and seeing some family, and just forgetting about work, forgetting about bills, forgetting about stress, forgetting about all the virus, and all, forgetting about all that kind of stuff, and just remembering what's freaking important in life. You know, just sat there and got more connected with God, got more connected with myself and my family, and that is literally what it's all about. And that's, I think, a lot of people need the experience to be able to do that. The problem is, so many people are afraid to go see their family. Now, when I did see my family, we all kept social distancing real, right? Because there's very vulnerable people in my family that, they just don't want to get. They would probably be on the worst end of the stick if they got COVID, right? So, but it was getting close to each other, at least, you know what I mean? And so that was my journey, and a lot of fun, honestly, to be honest with you. And I really needed that. It was a total refresher for me. So,
Well, good man. I'm glad you feel better. But as you said, there's a lot of chaos and shit in the world, and like, yeah, I admire your life because you live it differently than me. Because I have a business and I have everyone relying on me to drive forward this business and be that leader. And like in these times, we had one choice. We had two. We either die and let go of the company, or two, we grow exponentially and we use the opportunity in front of us. So I chose that one. And we've been doing really well, but it's cost me a lot, like a lot in terms of my energy and my abilities and things like that. So, I'm going to do something similar to you. I'm going to go up, see my parents. We're going to go canoeing, camping, hunting, whatever, in the next little bit. So I'm going to take my kids and go do that. But I understand where people are at. Like I hear the everyday stress and I don't feel that as much because like I'm pretty in tune with what I believe and I just give that up to God pretty quickly. That's kind of my way of just letting go. Each day I take a walk in the park and I just listen to my audiobooks, listen to my worship music, listen to my, have my phone calls, but out in nature, just doing nice things and just releasing those endorphins, releasing that stress constantly. And I just keep walking. Like today I walked like 20,000 steps. I just kept walking, man. And I just didn't want to stop. And so I figure that it's better to have your office on the outside, especially because half my day is making calls anyways. So I implore people, if you have the chance, get outside. Nature will heal you. It's the place to go, just like you were doing, whether it's out in a kayak on a lake or boating or whatever else. And definitely still be conscious. I see a lot of people just saying like whatever for the social distancing. They're like, screw it, whatever, we don't care. But the thing is you got to think about the people you can impact. If older people get this, they can die. So you got to be really conscious. Just because you're an asymptomatic carrier, you still have to be like, hey, I'm going to be somewhat cautious or not go around older people or wash my hands and treat myself like I have it. Because if you're not walking around acting like you have it, you're probably spreading it in some way. It's pretty contagious. So
yeah,
that's one of those things you just have to be conscious of. It's not all about how you feel. It's about how you affect others, right?
Yeah, well, and that causes a lot of stress for and so that's a double-edged sword, right? It's a double-edged sword, and let's talk about that because ever since COVID came out, you've had the narrative, oh, it's just a scam, and look, it's definitely been, I would say, at this point, we had probably a bit of an overreaction, but at the same time, I'm not the judge of that, and there has been a substantial amount of deaths from this, and it is a serious situation. So, whatever you believe, it's making sure that what you're doing in your actions is considerate of other people's sensitivities, understandings, and beliefs around what it is. It's like walking with just a little bit more consideration and mindfulness about what you're doing, how you're carrying yourself, and your conduct, right? Like, for example, the people who are the really close talkers that spray a lot, like those guys, they can just chill out. They just chill out, stay back.
Stay home.
Actually,
Stay home.
Here's the thing: 6 feet apart. I don't have a problem with that. I'll tell you why. I don't like people being all up in my space. Like I had this buddy of mine. He actually came up to me today where I was at the park and I was playing guitar. And I was showing him on my phone something, and I was trying to show him from a distance. He gets all up close like this, right? And I'm like, no, like, what are you doing? Get away! Like, see, social distancing has given me the actual perfect reason to actually tell people to keep the proper amount of distance away from me.
Yeah.
Yo, arm's length plus a little bit more. That's about right. That's keep them there. Not that I like if I really want someone up in my space, that's cool. Hey, we can hug, whatever. But like generally speaking, there's a little bit more closeness and distance. You know what I mean? And I don't need people all up in my space. So I think that social distancing and turns out it's actually how I've always lived my life. I haven't actually switched or anything like that. So I'm cool with it. I think it's how it should have always been. But
Well, yeah, I think that there's some things to avoid. Like, I want to go back to the topic in terms of avoiding burnout.
yeah,
And a lot of people, for example, you and I, our love language is not physical touch. Okay, that's not our love language. But there's a lot of people out there whose love language. If you don't know what I'm referring to, there's the five love languages, which is like, deeds and words of affirmation and gifts and physical touch.
yeah.
And then there's one more, it's not on the top of my head. So the idea is that we all have these. Now, if your main one is like, I love hugging people, and that's your physical, I just love that, you're going to feel like this is a hard time. So I would suggest like getting a dog or something.
Yeah. So I'm down. I have a dog, and my little Chihuahua. He's the best. And the other thing is this, like I'm gonna break this down just for a second. Okay. So in most tribes, most places in the world, people, and some people, they'll be kind of checked out by my saying this, but hugging and handshakes and fist bumps is kind of a Western thing. For the rest of the world, it hasn't actually been a thing. Like, it's like in Italy,
they kiss each other
certain
on the
cultures,
friggin' cheek,
in France and Italy, yeah, but in most places in the world, especially
in the Middle East, man, in the Middle East, it's both sides as well.
Really? Well, okay,
Yeah.
well, to give you some better examples. Okay, so like, I don't know. I'm just thinking that in like, if you had a tribe, because pandemics and diseases and viruses, like it's not new. This is just our generation or two generations, like first go at a big one, right? But like it's plagues have plagued humanity ever since the beginning of humanity. And so like if you were a stranger and I met you, we probably wouldn't get too close because you could bring something in to kill my people. And so I would probably keep you at distance. And so it's just an ancient, more wise practice, you know what I mean, of like a little bit of distance. Anyways, the bottom line is that I get that people can feel that that's very stressful. I get it, but I think it gives us an opportunity to reshift how we actually connect. Like, do you need and just think about this. Yes, physical touch is great, of course, okay, but a nice greeting for someone could be like hand over your heart and just like looking them in the eyes and acknowledging them, and make something meaningful connection without physical connection. You can have that. It's possible.
Don't tell the Tinder generation that, Shane. You're gonna blow up the internet.
Swipe left.
You know what I mean? Like think about where our cultures went. It's like instant gratification. You and I, we're from like a biblical background, so we believe like sex within marriage is a great thing, and maybe more people will fear enough to say, hey, maybe my sexual encounters, we should slow that down, right? And we should be more mindful of who you interact with, right? So I think this will bring a lot of things that are good back to society, maybe a little bit more discernment about who we connect with on those levels.
Well, yeah, but no, there's also like there's bubbles and pods growing from this, like these sort of social bubbles where, because let's say, for example, I've got a friend, okay, and he likes to go visit his mom, and his mom is almost 70 and probably in the high risk, maybe in the high risk category or whatever, right? So because he likes to go see his mom, he's very mindful about the people who he's around, right? And so if you haven't been doing social distancing very well and you come see him and he goes see his mom, then so he just checks and audits people's social distancing. And then, people are starting to get those little rapid, like the temperature checking, rapid tests, those are start coming in thing, because there's going to be a time, and it could be like in like going into the fall where, you're not going to be allowed to go to this event unless you get rapid tested or you get a swab or whatever it is, right? Like people want to know. And then what kind of stigma is going to be associated to having had COVID? Like, here's something weird to think about. What I'm going to say, this is weird. I get, yeah, people have had it, maybe it's over, and maybe it'll never come back up, but we don't actually know. It hasn't been around. There hasn't been enough studies done. But here's an interesting thing, bless you. Here's an interesting thing to consider. and I could be wrong on this, but I've heard, I haven't done enough research to look into this, and I don't really know how to look into this, but I heard that the American government, the American military, if you've had COVID, they won't let you join the army. But if you're already in the army and you've got it, that's a different story. But if you had it, they won't let you join the army. Why is that?
That would be weird.
That
That would
is,
be weird.
I want to look into that. That we'll make a note on that. I'm not 100%. I'm like probably 95.
That'd be weird because it's a coronavirus variant. So, once you've had a coronavirus, you form antibodies to it. That's the formation of it. So you can't get a virus again. You can not shed it somehow, but if you have a low immune system. But coronaviruses act a certain way. It's not like they're new. Okay, this is novel, means like we haven't seen it before. But it's not like coronaviruses are something we haven't dealt with in the past. So we know how they act, we know how they reproduce, we know how they work. So I don't know, man. Like, I don't want stigmas going around like that. I hope that society moves past this. I think that based off new tests in Mexico, we're heading towards everyone getting it fairly quickly. So if you haven't got it, you better pray for a vaccine quickly because, oh my gosh, this thing's coming. And if you haven't had it, like people like you and I that are out there in public all the time, we could have went through it and not even knowing it, So yeah, it's a hard one, but to avoid burnout, like I say, it's all about the little things you put in your day and how mindful you are. And we talked a lot about, our practices last time about like what you do from like meditation and like when you wake up and like what you say to yourself like is intentional.
Yeah.
But to avoid burnout, there's some things like even today I had a moment and I don't know how this happened, but it was in a movie and it was after I'd worked from 5 a.m. and I dropped down at the couch and it was 8:40. And the first song that comes on that was on this movie that my kids were watching was a song by Chopin. And most people might not know this composer, but he does like Eternal Sonata, very famous, like Beethoven or Mozart, right? So Chopin is like that. And that was on, and that was always a very relaxing thing to me because it took me back to the days. Those like Final Fantasy games, Shane, back in the day, you'd play a good like role-playing game.
Yeah.
That's what that music reminds me of, and it took me back, and immediately I was like, oh yeah, that's the stuff right there.
Dude, have you ever heard what's it called, Two Steps from Hell?
No.
It's like a symphony type of music. Let me just double check. I'm going to double check the name of that, but I think it's Two Steps from Hell.
That sounds awful.
It is such dramatic music.
But Shane, just to remind you, the 667 experience is one step out of hell, so maybe that's a fitting song for it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, no, dude, it is. It's Two Steps from Hell. This is okay, hang on. I'm just going to do 2 seconds of this because this is like it's pretty freaking intense. So this is Victory Battle Cry. What's going on? I have to download it. Dang it. Come on.
Maybe you should play it. Copyright issues. Just let it go.
Oh. Let's play Heart of Courage.
Yeah, there's some deep stuff. It's like
Final
Fantasy, right?
Okay. Hey, by the way, maybe one of the ways to avoid burnout is you got to go back and look at your story, your self-talk. Maybe it's time for you to realize that you have an opportunity to be a hero in this particular chapter of your life, to remember more of who you are. Sometimes you have to lose what you've got. You've got to lose yourself to find yourself. Sometimes you have to burn out to know what you truly want in life and what truly means something to you, right? And like this, I've taken this COVID opportunity, to reinvent myself, to grow long hair, to practice my guitar a lot more, to work on my voice and singing, to organize and design shows. So like, even and what I found, and this is my secret, is like I have spent a lot of time outside. I spent a lot of time outside. I've spent a lot of time snuggling up with my puppy, my little Bentley, my little Chihuahua doggy boy. You know what I mean? Like I spent a lot of time with my dog, hanging out with him. And I spent a lot of time talking with friends, right? non-business related. Sometimes Jordan and I, we'll just talk. I've got other friends, we just talk. And it's nice to have stuff that is not agenda driven, but is just like heartfelt conversations, right? Where you can just be real with your friends. I got into, I joined a men's group, right? That we share, we talk about, issues and relationships and things we go through, etc. And I found that that's a huge help as well, because you have a supportive group of brothers, and for women, I would
Is that
recommend.
through the church, Shane? So
No.
describe that for someone who's not experienced that.
So no, this isn't through the church. This is just a group of friends, and we decided to get a little group together, and and what we'll do is we'll like pitch in, and we'll read a book or something like that, and then we'll get a big speaker. We just had David Dieta come in and talk to us. That was pretty eye opening. That was awesome. So what a group is, if you're not in a men's group or a women's group, or just a group to get in where you can share, it's a bunch of people who agree, number one, to confidentiality, right? Who agree to support and encourage one another and hear one another, and to agree to be authentic and real and vulnerable, right? And it's not too big. You want to keep a group fairly small, like 8-9 people is probably a good limit, maybe 10 max, maybe 12, but like that's capped, because after that it gets a little too big and kind of washed out, but you want to have an inner circle group of people that you can join, and there are lots of groups out there.
Can I toss one out there, Shane? Because there's a great group that I'm part of. There's guys groups, girls groups, mixed groups in this function. It's called Leader Impact. So they follow that format. So it's really good. If you just go to leaderimpact.com, you guys will see your local area groups. You can click on it and join a group in your area. It's about personal, professional, and spiritual development. It's really good. You have people of all faiths in there, all walks, all lives, all genders, all beliefs. So take a look at Leader Impact. It's a great way to get involved. And they go through a book program, and it really has that community that you're talking about, right? It's very, very similar. They bring in speakers. They do that. They have quarterly meetings, and they have global missions where you can go out and you can help build a school in different places and XYZ. So, they're very involved in their community. So if you guys are looking for that, leaderimpact.com.
Sweet. Yeah, thanks, Jordan. So let's get back to the avoiding burnout thing. I think right now the biggest thing that people really need is there's a lot of spiritual confusion in the world, right? Now, this isn't a religious talk. This is just that we're so bombarded by so much media, and you go on Facebook, and I see very little spiritual talk. I see very much opinion talk about news and politics. And the problem with that is, if that's all you see, that's all you'll think about. If it's all you'll think about, it's all you'll talk about. If it's all you'll talk about, it's all you'll be about. If it's all you be about, that's who you are. And you can be a spiritual being that sees that this is a world that is temporary, that is a world of suffering, that is a world that is lost and in the dark and needs rescuing. It needs a savior. It needs a leader. It needs a king. It needs a god. Okay, it is a godless world. Okay, and if you see it from that perspective, then you'll realize that we're not wrestling against flesh and blood, that we're actually wrestling against spiritual forces of darkness and principalities. We're wrestling against, darkness in the world, and we are in the journey to becoming light. Okay, we are light. We're in the journey of realizing that, and stepping into, an eternal divinity. This is a temporary little tiny life. It's easy to lose sight of that when you got bills to pay, money ain't coming in, you got lots of things, your job's getting shut down, you're getting unemployed, you got nothing but crazy stuff going on in the politics and the news, and everybody wants you to take a side, right? Well, that's what the world's saying. And so that's the chaos. And the real solution, the real answer is peace, is freedom, is a higher perspective to understand who you truly are and what's really going on in the world, and you do not have to partake in the worldly things, right?
No, you can let it go, right? Because this is the thought, Shane, is there's a lot of different ways people view spirituality, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of different ways you can approach it. And so that's okay. Everyone's on their journey and their way of it. And I think what you're saying has a lot of validity. I'd say just before you make up your mind, if you're spiritually curious out there, go explore and read, and don't indoctrinate the first thing you hear or see. I think that prudence says explore what the world has to offer. It's a very dynamic place. And, finding truth, just the concept of truth, there is no like multiple truths, just so you know. Truth is either true or it's false. Okay, there's only one truth. So I want you to explore your journey with that idea. When you find something that's true, somebody else is something that's opposing you is not true as well. Okay, one is one. That's a true statement. 1 equals 1. We know that's it. Okay, so the idea is go find truth, not your truth. Okay, that's gonna allow you spiritual awareness to say that I'm following the right path, because that is the right path. That's what truth gives you. And so I find too many people go in the spiritual realm saying your truth and all these things. No. That's very mixed messaging, because then how do you live your life? How do you live? Where's the path that should be followed? If this universe is created and it's not come from chaos, okay? So if you think it's come from chaos, this isn't for you right here. But if you think it's created, then the creator made one path destined for you to follow. And your job is to find that path and follow that path. So that would be a form of truth, right? What is that truth? So I want to say everyone's going to go about their journey. They're going to go about their way. Our sway. We have not hidden that we're Christians. We never have, right? We follow one path. Jesus, we think, is Lord, and that's the way it is. You ever want prayer? You want to talk about it? You want to go and debate about it? Hey, Shane loves to debate. It's his favorite thing. So, connect with us, talk about it. But guys, it's one of those, if you feel heavy all the time, that's not always an emotional thing. It's not always a mental health thing. It can be a spiritual thing in your soul so deeply, right? So go explore that. We implore you to explore that, right? I think that's an important message, Shane, in avoiding burnout. Because for me, as I said, like each day, I just know like the weight's off my shoulders. No matter what happens, I have faith that I'll be taken care of, right? I just do. I'm just good with it. I could lose everything tomorrow. I still have everything in my heart. I'm full all the time. I don't run on empty. I don't get full one day and down the next. It's just beautiful and constant. So yeah, man, I think that's a good statement. I think you're good about that, and avoiding burnout comes from that. And I think you got a little bit in touch when you went and got back and see your family and stuff, right?
Oh yeah, no, it's amazing, and again, it's that remembering who you are and what you're all about and what life is really, what the important things in life is, and it's family, it's love, it's connection, it's relationships, and I think we feel like a lot of people feel like you have to have a lot of things in order to have a lot of relationships. But if you really look at the world, it's the people who have more things seem to have less relationships, and the people who have less things seem to have more relationships.
Yeah.
So what is truly important? And I think that what we've had this pandemic is an opportunity to do a big check in what's important, what's real, what's not. What actually matters in life, and what do we truly want? Like maybe the path that you were going down wasn't actually the path meant for you. So what does it look like to pursue your true path? Like, is it scary? Does it seem chaotic, or is it just that the fear inside of you about pursuing your path comes across and makes you feel like there's chaos, but it's actually just fear in disguise?
So Shane, let me talk to this, because there's something on my heart. I think there's a lot of guys listening to this right now that are going through a change. They either lost their job, their businesses aren't doing well, they feel like they're failing. But you have to know that you are more than your job. You're more than your dissertation in life. You're more than those things. You're more than your money, your home. What if you strip that all away? That's okay. You know why? You got all your experience you learned to this day. You have people around that love you. There are, right? There's God always with you. And when you realize that, that's a powerful thing. But you're more than that. So don't let yourself stew in that. You're going to get picked up again. You got this far. I think there's a lot of people out there hurting right now saying, what's left for me? What's left? Like, I know that as soon as these mortgage deferrals stop, and soon as banks stop pushing these low credit lines and things like that, people are going to start to break. We know that. Okay, but know that you're not alone. There's a lot of people in that boat, and that's okay. There's no reason to do drastic things. As Shane went back to his family, there's people who love you in life, right? Rely on that. Rely on the importance of those connections. That's what's going to make it through. I guarantee you that the majority of the planet, 80% of the planet, is going to have lost money, and a lot of money during this crisis, a lot of status and money. So you're in good company because you're in 80% of the world's company if you're on the downside in this. But as Shane's saying, don't let fear dominate your thoughts. Have faith that there's hope and there's goodness coming. Because when you're down, remember, there's not much further to go. There's up to come. So, it's all a cycle. And I'm just saying, live in faith. If you're in fear, if you're listening to this, Shane and I, reach out, message us. We got a little message button on the 667. We'll reach back to you, man. We care about people. We really do. At a deep level, that's what it's all about. It's about connections. So if you're listening to this and you feel lost and things like that, reach out, man. Reach out to somebody. Don't let yourself stew in your thoughts and let it get worse. That's the whole reason there's like counselors. Like if you're a dude and you've never went to a counselor before, like I went for my wife and we went together. I've went for myself because I've been through stuff where the world feels like it's falling apart. Use those options. Like that's how you avoid burnout. You unburden yourself. So back in the old days, remember that not the old days, they still do it. The Catholics, they go in and they what do you call that? Confession, right?
Confession. Confess your sins.
They're unburdening themselves. What's going on in their lives, what they're doing wrong because of all the pressure that's in their life, okay? And they're giving it up to a priest to give up to God. But other forms of Christianity believe that you can just give it straight to God anytime you want. So there's a direct relationship there. So the idea is that unburdening needs to happen. You need to have an event. You need to realize that you're more, that you're cared for. There's places to go, that you're not just about money. You're not just a provider, especially to the men out there. You're not just a provider. You're not just a paycheck for your family. That does not determine your worth. I guarantee you, if you go to your wife and say you lost your job and you're not going to be able to make the bills, she'll stand beside you. That's the way it goes. That's what marriage is about. So, I know there's a lot of guys about to go into a lot of hurt. I get it, man. So just stay strong. Know people care about you.
Yeah, and the other thing is don't let the train go all the way off the tracks. So let's talk about that. If you are worried about your job, do something about it. There's always a skill set, a soul set, or a mindset. I like to say a soul set, mindset, or skill set. It's going to get you up and over whatever hurdle. You can learn sales in like a month. You can learn marketing in a couple weeks or less. I mean, it's pretty easy.
Well, basic marketing, yeah.
Basic, yeah. You could learn how to run ads. You could learn how to become a digital marketer. You could run an e-com store this year, and next thing you know, you could be selling hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of stuff. Look, I'm making my own hats. I'm making my own 7-day weekend merch, man. I'm doing it. I'm building stuff. I'm always taking action, and so, it's because I spend a little bit of time every day learning something new, developing a new skill, working on some sort of relationship or something for the future. That's why I don't get into situations where I have no options, because I'm always looking and seeking. If you seek, you will find. You knock, the door will be open. These are promises, and they're true. And so it's always there. But the worst thing you can do is nothing.
Yeah.
The worst thing you can do is nothing. You should always be doing something to get through the situation. If you're having a hard time with the relationship, if there's a lot of chaos in that, or if you're struggling with an addiction, the worst thing you can do is nothing. Best thing you can do is talk, reach out, ask for help. The worst thing you can do if you have relationship issues is nothing. The best thing you can do, get a counselor. The worst thing you can do if you're feeling isolated and alone is stay isolated and alone. The best thing you can do is start connecting and looking at different groups, church groups, men's groups, women's groups, retreats, unisex groups, whatever. I mean, you get what I'm saying. There's always something you can connect to. But what will hold you back is an internal story. Let's get it down. Like when shit happens to us, we pile on in old stories of the failure, the loser, the loner, the unworthy, the not valid enough, the not smart enough, I'm not good enough, people won't like me. Those old stories that a lot of us run can come and start controlling the narrative and controlling the majority of where our thoughts are coming from. And so it's actually, the peace that you need to get out of the chaos. It's an inside job. You got to work on that story. You got to reprogram your subconscious mind. I was talking to someone earlier today, and I was doing a big thing about how to reprogram the mind for success and confidence, because a lot of people, when they get into business, they don't take the action that they need to take, and they don't get the results that they want to get because they don't have the confidence that they need. And your confidence really is what dictates your results. If you're not confident, people can sniff it, they can smell it, they can see it, they can sense it. They won't buy from you. They're not going to join you. They're not going to believe you, and they won't trust you. You need to be confident. You need to have faith in yourself and faith in what you can do and faith in God. And if you don't have faith in God, you at least need faith in you. But that's not easy if you haven't had good things happening in your life. Especially if you've had a tough role. If you've had like this happened, a relationship going bankrupt, going broke, when life starts going downhill, it can be challenging. But you also got to step into responsibility on that. And here's what I mean. You had a story in your mind that created those outcomes. You had a story. Well, the job's going away, but if you had a different story, well, I'm going to go find something else. I'm going to work on a new skill set. I'm going to make more money, right? Well, I got to save what little I have. The other mindset is I'm going to make more money. Right.
Here's an interesting story, Shane. When people say people tell me this all the time because they see me push. They're like, Jord, you have limits. And I'm like, how about not? How about you have no idea? I don't believe that a person actually has a limit unless they die. That was the limit. We found the limit. Like when people tell you have limits, tell them to well, why don't you explore your limits instead of telling me about my limits? I feel every time I can push further and further and further, and I actually enjoy the ride. So the reason I don't burn out as much is because I like to do what other people can't, because it makes me joyful that I did things that are more than other people would, right? I sacrificed more, I pushed harder. It's part of my story inside that you tell me I can't, I'm like, now I can. And I think it was a program of my mom. My mom used to I said Mom, I'm gonna learn another language. She's like, nah, you're too dumb. I was like, oh, okay. So I moved to Europe and I learned another language.
Wow.
I got the hell out of Dodge, right? So that taught her. Now even when I took her to Spain and I helped her around Spain, she's like, oh, you can get around in that language too. I'm like, yeah, who's dumb now? So it's that narrative of how do you respond to the challenge? Are you going to say, hey, I'm losing my job? Or are you going to say, hey, there's a new opportunity coming right now. I have a skill set. And remember, when you're working for someone, and this is for everybody out there, they are paying you less than you're worth, or you wouldn't be employed. If they could not make money off your job, off what your tasks were, and they were making money from that, you wouldn't be employed. Okay, unless you work for government, sorry. But in terms of everything else, if they couldn't make money off what you were doing and you're in private enterprise, you wouldn't be employed. So your skill is worth more than you're being paid today. It's an interesting concept. It's just, are you bold enough to be filled with the fortune to go for what you're worth? Because is the story, like Shane telling yourself, reinforcing that you can, right? Or are you comfortable, but now you're afraid because your job is at risk? or your boss has come to you and said, hey, I need you to take a 20% decrease in pay or we got to close the company. Right? I've seen that across the board. Like I've seen that in 90% of the people I'm exposed to, that they've had to decrease wages on people because it's the time, right? So, what are you willing to do now to have a different fortune? It's all about that story, Shane. 100% right. And avoiding burnout. Never let someone tell you have limits, right? Like the reason that, my hairline keeps going back a little bit is because I keep telling people I have limits. And one day I'll just be aerodynamic because that's the proof that, I don't have limits. So that's the truth of it. You can embody it. You can take it on. You can decide who you want to be. Just don't believe other people's stories about yourself. And don't let yourself reinforce the negative story about yourself. Right? Yeah. If you catch yourself saying something shitty about yourself, go in the mirror, smack yourself, and tell yourself 10 things positive about yourself.
So don't smack yourself. But what you do is, and going back to what I was saying is I was talking to someone earlier who had a lot of negative self-stories, a lot of negative self-talk, right? And she was like, I lack confidence. I'm this, I like that. And I said, look, sorry, I'm just getting my hat on right here.
Okay, hair man.
I'm sure. Yeah, this is the longest my hair has ever been. It's kind of crazy, so I'm trying to figure this out. But look, here.
You could lend me some hair later.
I'll lend you some hair, buddy. So here's what I says, and I'm like, okay, so if you're lacking confidence, what does that really say? What's the story behind that story? So you can make a positive affirmation. I am confident. Arr! But really, if you're saying I lack confidence, it means you're telling me you don't think you're smart enough. You don't think you're good enough. You think other people are better and smarter. Okay? It's also telling me that you're thinking that you're not capable, that you're inadequate, that people will judge you or reject you or whatever. You're like, so what's the story behind that? And you dive deeper. What's the story behind that? Where did that story come from? Who is the person or the people, or what's the situation that was the first wound? And then there's all these other stories that build up on top of stories that build up on top of stories. So don't just write a positive affirmation. If you're lacking confidence and you're feeling, or if you're feeling chaos and stressful, don't say, I am peaceful. But you do is you digress those stories, you extrapolate, you break them down a little bit and find out what really the fuck is going on. Pardon me for swearing. You find out what is going on. Okay? And so it's like, you know what? I make friends easily. People love it when I speak. I love speaking to people. I love talking to crowds. And so I had her go through this whole list of like different positive affirmation statements that would actually be the opposite of what those stories were. And then I says, now you got to repeat this over and over and over again because it's going to create a subtle shift. And here's what I mean. So when you start speaking these things, put it up on your wall, these positive affirmations, and you repeat them. What you do when you speak is you program your subconscious mind. It's subtle, but it is profound what happens over time as long as you continue to do it. Now, you also have to do the other work. You've got to plug into groups. You've got to plug into people and friends and community. But you got to work on your story about yourself because the fastest path from where you are to where you want to be in the life of love and peace and abundance and prosperity and good health and spiritual health and everything is in your language. The words that you say to yourself and other people. But the problem is what comes out of your mouth is the contents of your heart. And so everything's really a heart issue. Now, what you speak about yourself rolls all up in your mind and pours back into your heart. It's a circle. It's like a cycle. Okay, it's a wheel. And you got to be very, very diligent. And again, right now we've been bombarded. Negative news, negative media, this, pandemic, stress, worry, financial stuff. Stay away from people. Wear a mask. Don't touch anything. Wash your hands. Stop picking your face. We're all day long being bombarded by that. And so it's like this. It's a barrage of just negativity hitting us. And so now is the time more than ever. You got to take control. You got to take the reins of your personal narrative, with what you're saying to yourself and other people about yourself, your life, your situation, and start changing it repeatedly, repeatedly, repeatedly. And it's not going to just magically make everything smooth and easy, but it makes a small and subtle yet profound shift in your trajectory. And ultimately, you'll have a different conversation with someone. It'll give you a better feeling. When you have that better feeling, you'll have a better conversation, which creates a better feeling, a better thought, a better feeling, a better conversation, better actions, better reactions, better outcomes. Next thing you know, you're moving yourself forward in a positive direction to peace, away from chaos.
So let's dig into this a little bit. There's a couple of things out there. I would like to give people some practical advice. So one of the things that did this for me was Dale Carnegie. Dale Carnegie, there's a human relationships course. You can take it anywhere in the world. Like, it's everywhere. And it really will help you get out of your shell, talk to yourself the right way. It's 13 weeks. Very interactive, very cool group of people you get to be part of it with, and you'll see a lot of growth in yourself. Another one, what's the one locally here, Shane, that a lot of people do? Landmark. Okay, Landmark Forum. I heard that's a really positive experience as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you guys are looking for practical solutions, you can start there, because sometimes it's hard to do by yourself. Like, the biggest thing is, do you have accountability? And accountability comes in groups. So getting out to a Dale Carnegie, getting out to a Landmark Forum, getting out to a Napoleon Hill course. These are really cool places to start your personal development journey, or even to get a refresher. Like, a lot of you say, oh, I went through so much personal development and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but you could have been going through a lot of marketing courses lately, a lot of sales courses, a lot of different things like that. But you forgot to check in and renew your faith, your motivation, those intrinsic things that we don't work on. You may have all the skill sets in the world, but you're burning out because you haven't refreshed the fire that's deep in here.
And
you got
basics.
Everything straight in here, but you're missing the heart fire. You're letting it burn out, right? You got to feed all different parts of you, not just the professional. How do I do all this? But how about the personal? Do I have good personal relationships? Do I feel rewarded and interacted? And then the spiritual, that deep fire about why you're doing what you're doing. Simon Sinek says, start with why. 100%. 100%.
Yeah.
Right. So that's avoiding burnout. I think those are some good lessons for tonight, Shane. I think that
I would definitely want to recap that you guys should definitely spend more time outside, and more time by yourself outside, camping, hiking, walking the dog, going for a swim in the lake or the ocean, like literally getting out and getting more connected with nature, because you need to remember what life is really all about. If you didn't have a TV, if you didn't have a phone, you wouldn't even know what was going on, and you'd probably be pretty happy.
Totally. Like, there's a book called Hooked by Nir Eyal, and he talks about getting off your phone and getting disconnected and back to the real world of intention. So if you guys want to check out a good book, Nir Eyal, Hooked, really good. There's some habit experts as well, like Atomic Habits. If you guys haven't read that, it's really going to help you check in to how to make these things intentional and get back to, nature, get back to yourself, and check out technology, for a little bit to refresh yourself. The next thing to recap, Shane, was family. Getting back to what's important, family, friends, things like this. And the third was, hey, you're not all money. It's not about money, providing your job, your dissertation.
Look at me, marketing type of stuff,
You're a spiritual being. You're a person. There's value to you just as you. You don't have to have everything else, the big house, fancy cars. That's great. That does not make a person, right? That does not make a person. The most famous people in the world that we remember, did they have tons of things? Did Martin Luther King Jr. have tons of things? No, he was a preacher who lived a civil rights march, a humble one from humble beginnings. Did Gandhi have a lot of things? Nah, he had a robe. He hardly ate anything. Y'all remember him. Mother Teresa lived in the same clothes for years. She just washed those. We remember people who sacrifice greatly. It's not about the things, it's about your legacy and what you do with your heart and your intention for people around you. That's magical. So you're more than all this crap that the narrative tells you should have. Now the narrative's like, riot, do this, pick sides. The narrative sucks. Just like, don't do that. Do the spiritual thing. Love other people, create peace, be a person that gives and loves and cherishes and values and is slow to act in anger. You know, those things are the important things. And if you get back, that's a really good recap on tonight. You're going to avoid burnout by being drawn in to less crap. If you're drawn into good things, you're going to fill up. But if you're drawn into negative things consistently, you're going to burn out.
Yeah. It's going to affect everything. It affects your language. It affects your thoughts. It affects your language, which affects all your results. So sometimes, like, you watching the news is not saving the world.
Right.
You watching the news doesn't help anyone at all. You watching the news will only give you stress, resentment, division, divisiveness, opinions, lots of great ideas about people and politics, but it's not going to make any difference in the results in your life except for a negative difference, right?
That's right. Except the sports news. Just throw it in there for all the guys out there.
You know, and look, someone, I sat down with a guy and he says, you know, Shane, I'm like, well, what about COVID? He's like, I don't know what's going on. Like, literally, and even Bob Proctor, when he was asked, like, do you watch the news? He says, no, I don't watch the news. I don't even know what's going on in the world. I don't care, because none of it gets him any further or closer towards his goals. So stay goal orientated, focus on what's important to you, and eliminate the negativity and the stress. I've been watching way less news. Like, I will watch maybe once a couple days or something like that, but only like but not like the Fox or the CNN or the things that are like super intense. I literally just watch some pretty objective news things to see what's going on in the world, just so I'm not completely out of relevancy. And then I just leave it be, because if you watch too much, it becomes this all-consuming thing, and then all of a sudden, you know, it's like your whole world. And really, your world's over here. That's all over there. You need to focus on what you're focused on.
Well, let's talk about this more. I see a lot of, this is young men specifically, being drawn into day trading, market trading. Frickin', these things are cancerous. I got to tell you, if you're watching the markets every day and you're getting drawn into this concept, the thing is, it's going to suck you in, and it's like gambling, okay? Because I'm telling you, you don't have a crystal ball. You don't know where the market's going. The best traders in the world in BlackRock, the biggest hedge fund on the planet, don't know where the market's going to go tomorrow. So if they don't know, you're not going to know, okay? And they have the fastest trades in the world. So the fact is try not to get sucked into that world. There's good ways to make money and be a person of value, which is creation and service and development. And then there's what I consider the other ways, and that's being a slave to money and all the concepts of it. So beware what master you serve. Beware. I see these programs laying in people's minds, this consistent wealth, trade this, do that, give no real value to the world. Just be careful. That's it. That's my only lesson. That will burn you into the ground, because it's not a good thing. It will burn you into the ground. The money traders, even in the Bible, they're like, money traders, man, get out of my temple. The temple's not made for them. He kicked over tables, man.
Yeah, they were in the church though. I think, you know, I'm gonna disagree on some levels. I get that. Yeah, there are some that's valid, but at the same time, you know, when you can learn trading as a skill and you're using proper risk management and you learn the disciplines to trade at certain times. I know people trade 1 hour a day, and they make more than enough money to live on.
Shane, that's not what I'm talking about. You know it. I'm talking about the people who get addicted to the market watch.
Well, yeah,
and can't live without the ding on their phone.
And
if
there
you
is
can
that.
do anything responsibly, yes.
Of course,
but there's very few in that arena that I know who are responsible, and the ones who are extremely wealthy, but they've developed habits and they have good mentors to do it, and most people don't have that. It's a trap.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I got you. And that's the thing is, when you are trading, your emotions get involved, and it becomes a really tough thing. But let's get back to peace rather than chaos, because we're talking about that stuff. So, guys, we've had a really good chat tonight. We talked about some things that you can do to get back to peace and to avoid chaos and all this turmoil and stuff in the world. That wasn't actually the title of the podcast.
Yeah, it was avoid burnout, man.
Avoiding burnout in the midst of chaos. So I hope you guys got some value from this. Again, go to our YouTube channel and subscribe. It's the 667 Experience. Go to our Facebook page and like it. You can catch all of our other past episodes, and you can find our podcast on iTunes and Google and all the other podcast channels right now. So go look it up, the 667 Experience. My name is Shane Carlin, here with my awesome co-host, Jordan Rouse. And we hope you guys have an amazing evening. Take care.